Hello and welcome to a video about 3D printing. Yes, today I'm going to combine my love of gaming, care of tanks, Panther versus Sherman, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to 3D print up a Stug, which you actually get a card for in the box, just to compare how good a job can you get from your 3D printer versus the lovely plastic miniatures that actually come in the box. So anyway, let's have a quick look at the plastics. I'll then have a play around in Slicer, which is a bit of software I've recently acquired, and we'll end up with a Stug, which I'm going to paint with a Flames of War Dunkelgelb German armour paint. Well, when you actually get the game, you get a couple of sprues for your Shermans, a couple of sprues to make one Panther. Now the Panther can actually be made to either be a Jag Panther or your regular unit, and as you can see they're pretty detailed figures. Let's see if we can focus in a bit. There you go. So nice stuff. You can put some Scherzen on the side if you want. The machine gun is a little bit fiddly, and I can see that getting broken. There you go. There it is. And there's not really much to do apart from glue on the turret hatch. Now the assembly of this, a little bit fiddly, the worst bit being this machine gun on the front. Now on my Sherman I actually cut off a hatch which I wasn't sure where it went, so I decided to just stick it on the bottom. But yeah, the biggest pain on this again is the machine gun, so this little teeny bit there, that's a right pain. You've got some applique armour which you can choose to glue on or not. You could always cut it in half and make smaller bits, possibly a little bit big. There's also a little bit on the back which is a little bit vague in the instructions as to how it goes on. I actually went onto the website in the end just to check. And the other bits that are potentially a bit fragile on this are the machine guns on the top. So that's turret choice number 1, which is the long barrel gun, or you've got the more original short barrel which doesn't have a turret glued in, so you can either have the commander kind of sitting in your tank if you've got a figure, or just have the hatch open, or if you prefer you can have it sealed with a machine gun, for example. There are a couple of other barrel choices, so I've gone with this particular barrel, but there is also this long barrel howitzer, and I forget which one that is. Is that the 76? Oh no, that's the 75. That's the original design, which the gun mantlet was a badly designed. I don't know if you can see, that's not really shown up. A little bit better there. Anyway, so yeah, pretty nice figures. Anyway, let's get to printing, shall we? Anyway, we're now in Simplify 3D, a new package. As you can see, I've got several STL files, care of Thingiverse, and I believe it's actually a 6 or 10mm figure, which you have to scale up, and it scales up pretty well, to be honest. So let's double click, and as you can see, yeah, it's 26mm, which is not quite big enough, so scale it up to 200% size. And you could try and rotate it to try and get it on the bed, but yeah, I tried that, it didn't really work. So I've discovered there is actually here an option to place a surface on the bed. You click and there you go. Happy days. Now when it comes to support material, there are various choices. I've already exported the model I'm going to print, so I've discovered that from the build platform is good, and 3mm probably good. I've gone with 2 here. Let's generate the supports, and as you can see, creates quite an impressive mesh underneath the vehicle, and you've got to be careful with the printouts, obviously on something this scale for some of the overhangs. So you've got a choice of fast, medium or high. For this particular one I'm going to do high with a kind of less than 20% infill. I don't think you need a huge amount of infill. And a couple of settings here just for you to quickly look at. So I haven't modified this desperately. All I've really done is change the print quality and the support material. Everything else I believe is pretty much as it comes when you first create the profile on installation. And I have to say, it's taken me a little bit of a while to get used to this program. I've been using Slicer and Cura, but yeah, it works pretty well. So when you go to prepare to print, it gives you a rough cost and time. So less than $1, I'm guessing. They're recommending the cost of this, and then just save it. And as you can see, I've got a 1 hour Stug short, and I'm gonna just overwrite this 2 hour high quality. There you go. So now ready to print. Away we go. So whir chug, whir chug. Now this is going to take an hour or two, so we will come back to this when this is all done. And here it is, our Stug in its lovely white, shiny, almost impossible to see on the video format. There you go. Hopefully that helped a bit. So let's get this painted up in my desert colour, which as you can see is probably, let's move that. As you can see, is probably not going to match the panther. So, to the garden. Well, on a slightly damp and cold wintry morning, I've managed to get some pretty good coverage on this Stug. The coverage looks pretty good. Might have to use a little bit of green stuff to finish this off and then paint it up properly. Okay, so we're back inside, and as you can see, painted up from a distance, it looks pretty good. Now if you look closely, you can see some ringing. Now this was printed at medium quality, so I think at high quality it would look a lot better. But painted up as a game playing piece, it's acceptable. It's not obviously as good as an official model. Price wise, I'd have to work out how much this costs, but it's not a huge amount. These expansion packs, £7–8 I want to say. Let's just grab one of my spares over here. Excuse the rustling. Okay, so here you go. So a Tiger 1 official expansion pack, RRP £7. With a bit of discount, you're going to pay about £6. So this figure here represents about £6 at retail. Now, when you buy these in expansion packs, you get some extra cards, but I've already got the card for the Stug in the base box set here. So, you know, it's a nice way of supplementing my forces. I'd be pretty happy with this. I think printed out as a 6mm or possibly 10mm, this might actually look a bit better. I would be a little bit worried about the tracks, because when I was actually taking it off the bed, I managed to rip the track and had to glue it back down a bit. The quality on the bottom's not the best because I put a lot of support material to make sure it didn't droop, which came off pretty easily. But yeah, I mean, that does look pretty good. Colour tone wise, as I predicted, slightly different colour to the unpainted plastic, but I could easily paint this plastic to match this dark desert colour. And to be honest, this is going to need to be painted up. This is just a base coat, to be fair. With a bit of liquid green stuff or actual green stuff, the printing floors could be easily covered up. The actual side detail is actually pretty impressive, and no assembly required, just a 2-hour print time. So yeah, overall I'm pretty impressed. I'm going to try maybe printing up some of the Russians, which come in the base box, because I hadn't really planned in buying any of the Russians. But yeah, maybe I might change my mind and buy some plastics, but I'll maybe try them out first with a couple of 3D prints. But yeah, it's a nice way of supplementing your forces. I do recommend, of course, you do buy the official figures to support the game. But you know, if you just want to maybe make use of some of the spare cards that come in the official products, then yeah, just whack out a couple of extras, and maybe, you know, nice little way of practicing your painting. Print out a 3D item, give it a paint job before tackling your main actual tanks. And this paint is pretty good. I do prefer using my airbrush, but for a quick paint in the garden, yeah, pretty impressive. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that quick look at how you could use a 3D printer to enhance your gaming hobby. If you're not into gaming, well, maybe you're into modelling or just 3D printing in general. So yeah, my first ever print using Slicer 3D, and it's pretty impressive. I think it's going to be worth the price of admission, about £120, I think. But as you can see, at medium quality, it's serviceable rather than brilliant. So I'm going to try at high quality, I think, and see what you gain for that extra print time. As you can see, in tanks, you get a stat card. This is actually for a Stug G, which is the long barrel, whereas I've gone for the original short barrel on my printout. And as you can see, the stats there, 3, 4, 1 and 5 with 5 hit points, and of course the German Blitzkrieg ability. And you get all of that for 15 points. So yeah, you could fill quite a few Stugs, and the Stug was a very common tank, for want of a better word, in World War II. You know, a lot of the older Panzer IIIs were starting to get a bit outclassed, so practical Germans, they just repurposed them into self-propelled anti-tank guns, and you ended up with a Stug. And probably the biggest killer of many a tank was the SPGs that the Germans produced. Unfortunately, though, obviously they're more of a defensive than an offensive weapon.